We are here with two absolute legends, heroes of mine. We've combined forces. Peggy McCree was here with Dweezil Zappa, Paul Camerata, and myself 3 months ago now.
Was it? Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But we had such an amazing reaction, and everybody in the world loves you so much. So you were nice enough to drive all the way down here to come back for our guest of honor, Mr. David Z. Rivkin. How is everybody doing?
Good.
Good, thanks.
Excellent. I don't know if you've seen any of these, but we're just documenting the studio.
I've seen a couple, yeah.
Excellent. Great.
I'm glad you're doing it.
I know. It's just, when Eddie Van Halen passed last year, it was like engineers, producers, musicians are all going away, and it's like these stories need to be told.
And so are their stories, yeah.
Documented.
They're all going in their own bedroom.
Yes. Well, the studio is celebrating 60 years this year.
Yeah.
And it's, as both of you know, it's a father-son operation. There's never been a name change, no corporations, no, sponsors, anything. It's just two guys and a lot of music. Hopefully the youth of today will watch, absorb, and be entertained. David.
Yeah.
We're both from Minneapolis. I was born there.
Oh.
So are you.
Yes.
Now, you taught yourself engineering.
I taught myself engineering. I did not take any courses or anything. I actually was trapped in a studio in the hood for a long time. I wanted to stay in music, so I took a job as an assistant, and I funneled groups from a booking agent that I knew to do demo tapes so he could play the tapes for the club owners, and they'd know what they were booking. So
Wow.
I thought it was a pretty cool idea at the time. I mean, there weren't that many people in music back then, but, me and Beethoven got along. But that's how I started. And the guy that was the engineer owner decided to quit doing that, and he said, "Why don't you take over?" And I went, I'm a guitar player. I never thought I would be doing this. And he said, "Oh, you'll learn." He locked me in the room for a couple of years, and I read all these books, Robert Runstein, and how compressors worked, and kind of experimented until, I broke something, and then I would back off. So that's kind of how I learned, was the law of mistakes.
You started as a guitar player, right, in music? That was like the first instrument you learned, and then you came out here and
Yeah.
were at A&M for
I was
a
a
while.
guitar player, and then I was a songwriter, and I was actually a promotion man for radio, for A&M and Elektra. And I said, I was frustrated with what they were telling me to try and get played. I mean, some of it was great, but some of it I didn't like that much. And my boss in Minneapolis said, "Why don't you just pack your car up and move to L.A.?" And I did. I moved to L.A. and I got signed as a songwriter to A&M. And that's how I started in the studio as a player and a singer.
Incredible. How old are you then?
I was 22.
Whoa.
We're talking 1969.
Summer of Love
Something
era
like
kind of
that.
through there?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had made it at that point? I
No.
mean, you're in L.A. And
No,
you're
it
just-
was frustrating because, the publishing company, Irving Almo, I wanted to write songs for Dusty Springfield and Aretha Franklin. And, they had to do what they could do, and they wanted me to write a song for Three Dog Night. But that wasn't my style.
Yeah.
And it was fun, though. I got to play with some of the best musicians. And I got to play with Billy Preston. And I wrote with Graham Parsons.
Yep.
So that was a good education.
Did you write the track How Much I Lie?
Yeah.
You wrote that?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I wrote the chorus for it.
What year did Graham pass away?
What's that?
What year did he pass away?
I don't know years.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he passed away, I realized that I was probably next. And I moved back to Minneapolis to save my life.
Are we
And-
doing a lot of drugs and cocaine and
Yeah,
heroin
everybody
and
was.
everything?
We didn't know it was bad until people started dropping dead. I mean, that's
the fun out of it, didn't we?
yeah. It took the yeah. I had the good part, and then we realized that it'd kill you. So
Yeah.
I moved back to straighten up and do something. I had a job in a metal factory at night, and I was really frustrated. And in order to get back into music, I started taking groups into the studio. It was a studio called ASI. They had it was up in North Minneapolis, and it was very elementary. They didn't even have tape counters. I don't know, the guy was a kind of a crook, and his theory was if you rewind the tape until you hear the noise stop, then that's where you start the song. I mean, he had all these ways of wasting time so he could make more money. Mm-hmm. And I even thought of a book, 100 Ways to Waste Studio Time. I think it would be a bestseller with studio owners.
So you teach yourself engineering,
Yeah.
and then you're bringing groups into the studio in
Yes.
North Minneapolis,
Yeah.
and you're engineering them.
I'm
and
engineering.
You're tracking them. And
Yeah,
giving
I made some of the worst recordings ever. And I just kept doing it and doing it. And my goal was to get three-dimensional recordings, because that's what I was obsessed with, because all the recordings sounded very shallow and, amateurish in the beginning.
Was your first job at Sunset Sound in a studio, or did you work any? Okay, so you came right here as a runner and then moved up. And okay, I didn't know if because you went to that school in the Valley. What was it called? Sound Masters.
Yeah,
And that's
for
how you
what,
learned.
5 weeks or something? Yeah, I learned here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically, we're in the same boat. I learned by practical experience.
Did they have a head engineer at that ASI? Is that what it was called?
It was the owner, and he just decided he didn't want to do it anymore.
Oh, nice.
He was more comfortable swindling people in the front office. So I did get to do a lot of groups there, and since we were in North Minneapolis, I did a lot of R&B groups. As a matter of fact, that's when I first met Prince. This developer I know, Archie Gibbons, he brought in a group called Champagne.
Yeah.
And it was Grand Central.
Grand Central,
Yeah. It was Prince and Andre Simone and Morris Day, a trio. And I recorded them, and I don't think it was anything special. I can't remember what it was, but about a year later, Prince broke off from that group and took
Time
on
out for a minute.
management.
So they come in as Grand Central. Andre, housed Prince when he got kicked out at 14 years old. What did they record? Was it like
They
a funk
had
song?
songs, yeah. They had songs they had written. I mean, for the life of me, I can't remember. I guess I would have if they would have been. But we were all amateur back then. It was
Yeah.
just the beginning of the sound of Minneapolis. And it was the beginning of professionalism in Minneapolis, because there really weren't any records coming out of there that sold. I mean, there was the Trashmen with Liar Liar, and there was, the Bird,
Yeah.
and everyone had to leave to make it from there. I mean, Bob Dylan moved to New York. Willie Weeks was the great bass player, had to move here. Bobby Lyle had to move here. Nobody could succeed out of there because there wasn't any business. There wasn't any organization.
What was your brother, Bobby Z, doing?
Bobby was playing, he played the drums first with my brother Steve. They had a group called the Jaguars. And then Bobby played with various groups. I played in a country group with him.
Nice.
And that was before, he got drafted.
Yeah.
Well, your brother Steven is a fabulous film editor.
He's doing really well.
Yeah. I mean,
Really well.
Spielberg movies and what else?
Well, he's working on Avatar 2, 3, and 4 right
Yeah.
now. So I think he'll be busy for the rest of his life.
But you don't remember the vibe of the songs? Morris is playing drums.
Morris
Prince
was playing
singing.
drums. Andre was playing bass, and Prince played guitar.
And then a couple tracks. They were doing a demo.
Yeah, it was a demo, a couple tracks, and Archie was kind of a wealthy developer, and he brought them in. He was the one that spotted them. And, it was beginnings.
Yeah.
It was
Did you notice Prince had just an amazing talent then?
not at that time.
Okay.
No.
How long was it till he came back in and did the
It
demo
was
by
a year
himself?
later that Owen Husney he took over Prince's management and brought him to me.
Yeah.
I was at a different studio after that, and
A better one?
yeah, yeah, they had counters on the tape machine.
What was the Minneapolis sound at the time?
There was no Minneapolis sound at the time. It was shallow recordings, and it was drifting around. There was no sound. I mean, Bob Dylan was the closest thing to.
Wow.
It was folk blues, is what it was. I mean, Kerner Ray and Glover and Bob Dylan, and it was the folk blues. That was what was big back there, and it's still considered a contributing factor to all the R&B that came out of there.
So Prince comes back in, and did he request you, or did you know you knew his manager?
I don't know what happened, but I was probably one of the only engineers that knew the street and knew what was going on, and I wasn't doing television commercials like everybody else, which that's all they did.
Yeah. That was
But-
so much work in here. I mean, there was 3 sessions a day. Was there 3 sessions in the 80s when you were here? 2?
Oh, yeah.
It went down
Yeah,
to 2?
yeah, you don't get a lot.
It was double session, so it was a daytime and a night.
Viagra.
Yeah, commercials are they're heartless. I mean, you gotta crack the whip, and anybody makes a mistake, you just keep going. And it's all charted out. I mean, they're nice commercials, but they're not soulful.
So Prince, he does this demo, and do you remember what the song was?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
It was. He had all these new songs written that were great, and he had recorded every part on this little hand cassette machine.
Yeah.
And he hummed the piano part, and then he hummed the drum beat, and then he hummed the guitar part, and we'd go around the room, and before he started the drums, he'd listen to the drum part. Same thing with the piano, same thing with the bass. And he had planned it out, and he was able to execute it all himself, which is really rare, to be that objective over your own playing and not sound like it's one guy. He didn't sound like it was one guy. He managed to put different personalities on different instruments.
And that
Go
was
ahead.
what I thought was so amazing about him, is that he could just pick up anything, and
Yeah.
and he didn't have to talk to anybody. It was
No.
all in his head, and he just, he was all by himself. He loved that. So
Yeah, I mean, he got so comfortable with recording that he did a lot of it himself eventually.
Yeah, with Peggy teaching him how to do a lot of things himself.
Yeah, he tortured a lot of people too. But
Why did why did he split with Grand Central? Does anyone know?
because he wanted to do his own thing.
Yeah.
And, I was friends with Andre during that whole time, and Andre wanted to break off and do his own thing. Everyone wanted to do their own thing at the time. And, Prince through Owen and my cousin Cliff, got a chance at Warner Brothers, because Cliff was the promotion man for Warner Brothers. And they took the tape to Russ Dirett there, and he flipped out. He couldn't believe it was one guy. And so they flew us out here, and they were in the studio. I think it was that wooden studio of Warner Brothers in the Valley. I forgot the
Amigo.
name. Yeah.
That's where they went? Amigo? Amigo?
Yeah, Amigo, right.
Yeah.
And they had Lenny
Warnaker.
Warnaker there, and Gary Katz, and Ted Templeman. They had all their famous producers came
Yeah.
into the room
Wow.
to see if Prince could actually do it himself. And we started working, and he got 90% done with one song. And
You were there too?
Yeah.
So
there, yeah.
you flew out from Minneapolis
Yeah.
because on Prince's request?
Well, I was his guy.
Yeah, you were doing his stuff back in Minneapolis, and he said, "Come out with me. I'm going to go do this
Right.
work." And they
Yeah, I
wanted
never
you-
worked for him. I just worked along with him,
Yeah.
which is great because I didn't have to get the calls at 4 a.m. like Peggy did.
No, I didn't work for him either. I worked for the studio.
Oh,
so
that's right. So
they
you
would call me.
you weren't
wouldn't-
on his
yeah.
payroll, but
Yeah,
he
I
was.
wasn't on his payroll.
Yeah, you're
Susan
lucky.
was, though.
Susan was.
She was.
Yeah,
an
he could be
employee.
very hard on people, and especially when he had the eye of Soren, that
Oh, yeah.
he'd focus on some person that he didn't think was doing a job, and he'd let him have it.
I
Like a
had
bird.
one day like that.
Yeah. Well, one day
Yeah, only one.
That's
Only
good.
one where he really focused and
Yeah.
he was riding me all day long.
know.
It was rough.
When the tape got lost or whatever?
Yeah, and it didn't have anything to do with me. That's what was so irritating. I
David
couldn't-
lost it, didn't he, or something?
Oh, I don't know who lost it.
Okay.
I don't know who
he
lost
was a
it.
very tough boss. I mean, I didn't come under his wrath at all, so I'm luckily a witness to that. But I've seen him when assistant engineers especially.
Oh, yeah.
He'd come down on them and say, "What are you doing?" And they had to explain themselves, and it was almost like they were sweating and shaking. And
He liked that too.
yeah, he liked that. He'd like to keep people under his thumb.
I'm from Chicago, and Michael Jordan was gigantic when I was growing up in the 90s, but he was the same way. He was so hard on his teammates, demanded so much, would ridicule them, ride them so hard. But he demanded greatness from everybody. Do you think that's kind of what his attitude was, or was he just kind of venting out on people?
No, he wasn't just venting. He was trying to. It was a control thing.
Yeah, he
was
knew
trying
it was
to
best.
control people that you keep them under your influence. I mean, don't tell them things. Let them guess, and that he used to treat his band that way.
You come out to Amigo with him, with the new manager. Everybody at Warner Brothers is excited. You guys go in Amigo. He plays every single instrument.
Yeah.
He's a phenom. They had already signed him at that point?
They had already signed him, but they were trying to figure out who was going to produce them. That's what they had all those
Oh, wow.
guys in there, and I think every one of them thought they were going to do it. And I think Lenny suggested the guy from Earth, Wind, and Fire, Maurice,
Yeah.
and Prince just went, "No, don't make me black. I don't want to be a black artist," because he did. It was a revolution. He was changing music, and he wasn't the OJs, and he wasn't all the prevalent R&B artists. It was a different groove. He invented his own licks, his own grooves that didn't imitate anybody else. I mean, he found his own sound by experimenting like that, and he didn't want to copy anybody. He
Yeah.
wouldn't. He refused. If somebody suggested doing a lick that he thought was on some other, no, he wouldn't do it.
He would say, that's the competition.
Yeah.
So you guys go in Amigo, and then do you guys cut for you there?
No.
You worked on that record, right?
Yeah, I did. He cut the tracks at Armin Steiner's place, and then we went to, I don't know, maybe he cut some of the tracks at Amigo.
But did you engineer that whole album?
No, I did not have anything to do with it.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't known. I didn't have a reputation at all.
So
And Warner Brothers was,
they pushed you right out.
they wanted some guarantee because they didn't want to give Prince and his guys all the control. They needed a guarantee if they're going to spend that money.
Yeah.
And when I was signed to A&M as a writer, I had Tommy Vicari was one of the staff engineers, and he recorded some of my demos, and that's the only guy I could think of. Him and Robert Appert, that was it. And I suggested Tommy, and Lenny went, yeah, sure. I mean, because he's got credit.
Wow. I mean, Prince probably would have been discovered, but look how pivotal you were in bringing him to Warner Brothers, doing the initial
Yeah.
demos. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to bring up the level of Minneapolis music, and he was the likely subject to do it.
What did he like? I mean, did he ever give you like a reference track? Like, if I produce something or film something, it's, I love a reference track because it gives me an idea how to light something or how to make something sound. Did he say ever come in like, oh, I love the snare on this, or I love?
No, he didn't get that involved.
He didn't care about any of that.
No, he just played. He just went ahead and played. If he made a mistake, he said I was meant to do that, and then he kept going.
Did he ever say like, I like that song, or?
Rarely.
Communicative, was
Rarely.
Did he communicate more with you because he knew you longer?
What's that?
Did he communicate with you because he knew you longer?
Oh, yeah, he wouldn't shut up sometimes. I mean, I'm looking at him going, people are not going to believe this, but, he's yelling and jumping on the couch, and I'm looking around, I'm the only one in there. And but that was after a while, he got loose. But no, he was very communicative, very talkative, and we talked about what we wanted to do and wanted to break a lot of rules. That was a discussion we had many times. We just said, if we could put guitars underwater, we'd do that to see how it sounds. And it was all in theory. We were discussing that stuff, but we tried stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not underwater, but, similar.
He was always trying stuff. I mean, he was always hooked that up. It's like, okay.
Right. He played the bass on the organ pedals on Erotic City, which I thought was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
So what year is this then? Like 77, 78 kind of for the For You album?
I don't
Somewhere
ask me
in
about
there,
years.
yeah.
Years are
lose
gone
years.
with me.
Yeah.
So For You doesn't do that well, though. They didn't market it correctly.
It was
a tank.
It was an overproduction. He even admitted it. He said, I sang too many voices on there. He was given free rein, so he wanted to express himself, and after not being able to afford to do that, he just played everything and anything, threw the kitchen sink into it. And yeah, he hadn't really developed his sound yet.
Where was he living out here? Did he have a permanent residence then? Or
Yeah,
was
we rented a house in the valley, in the mountains, and
you were living with him too?
for a little while. I
Yeah.
mean, I was back and forth.
Just you two, or
No, Owen Husney was with us.
all three of you guys are renting a house for at least?
Yeah.
You're there for a couple months. Wow.
In the valley, huh?
And I think Andre came to stay, and Owen's wife at the time came to involved, and yeah.
You guys wake up and have Cinnamon Toast Crunch together every morning, and morning coffee. Hey,
He didn't
Prince. Did he eat with you?
I think so. I
Just a
mean, we
little bit.
ordered out. I don't remember cooking anything. But during that first album,
Prince cooking omelets.
we went to the record plant in San Francisco, in
Sausalito.
Sausalito, and we worked there. That's where we recorded most of it.
Yeah.
And we did childish things. We went to a fancy restaurant one night, and I brought a little midget squirt gun. And Prince was a kid. He just liked to do kid stuff, and I'd lift up the squirt up in the air and put it back down, and the people 4 tables over would go like that, and we'd just laugh. And then he did it. I mean, this is a different day and age. This was.
What year did Funky Town come out to completely
It was
switch channels?
1980.
Okay.
We recorded in '79. That I remember.
Yeah. I mean, Funky Town went #1 in every single country. Did you know that?
No.
Monster one-hit wonder, but
Yeah,
monster
it was a real
song.
shock. It was a real shock.
Did that just take off and you're like, holy cow?
Yeah.
Because you had never had
It was
success like that.
It was like the last disco song ever.
Yeah. I have so many fan questions about everything about that track, but I was just trying to place when that was in the Prince period. You guys were you involved with Prince, the album, after For You?
No, I didn't have anything to do with that.
Okay, so those first 2 albums, he was with Warner Brothers, and they're telling him who to work with.
Yeah, Prince did the second album himself, I think.
Do you know where that was done at? Was that record plant also? Hollywood Sound?
No, that was at Ray Parker Jr.'s house.
Yep.
Well, and
I knew
that's
that.
what Warner Brothers wanted Ray Parker to
Yeah.
check it
Produce
out,
him.
and he said, he's fine. Let him go. So,
Yeah,
Wow.
that's when he did I Want to Be Your Lover. And that at least got him up the charts a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Was he dating a lot of girls then?
was he dating a lot of girls?
Well, I mean, he was
that
known
what you
for
said?
having a ton of women coming around here. I didn't know if he was so dedicated in music and he was just waking up playing songs, writing.
You know, he never really showed anyone any special attention.
Yeah, he was on a mission.
He was on a mission, yeah.
Where do you think that drive comes from in people? Like,
I don't know. He never slept, very rarely, and only was driven by music, compulsory, just completely, you know,
if you're
Obsessed.
alive, playing music.
obsessed.
Yeah.
And you got to be obsessed to be a successful star. And he was.
yeah, he was.
Dirty Mind's up next. Is he checking in with you at this time?
Yeah. Dirty Mind, he pretty much did himself, too.
Yeah.
And that's when he started developing his sound. His funk grooves and the little licks he played that were only special to him. And the Oberheim horns, the OB8, that was a sig. And I think that's the first time he used the Lindrum.
Yep.
And he was trying to develop his sound. I mean, we talked about personality and sounds and how the snare drum can define an artist. If you even hear the first bar, you go, I know who that is. Just because of the sound of the snare. I practice that too.
You know, the Lindrum was the guy that invented it. It's like right by where you live now. North Hollywood, that's where he came up with
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah. Roger
Lynn, yeah.
Yes. And obviously, both of you told me that he would start off with the Lindrum when he would come in the studio.
Sometimes. It
Acoustic
depend-
drums sometimes too?
It just depended.
Yeah, he played real drums on some things.
He played real drums. Sometimes he would start with a piano. Sometimes, usually the drums or piano.
What an amazing piano player, too. We have
I know.
some tapes here of him just sitting there for hours.
Yeah, I don't know when he ever practiced, but he never.
Yeah.
He practiced everything. He must have, because he was really good at everything.
Back in Minneapolis, do you remember where they rehearsed at? Was it at Andre's house?
What are you talking about?
When they're in Minneapolis before they came in the studio, like where would Grand Central practice? Did he have a piano at the
Probably
house?
Andre's house. I don't know.
Yeah. When you guys lived in the Valley, did he have a piano there?
No.
So, yeah, he was
Well, his dad played piano, so he played piano as a young child, I think.
That's right. There's that great story from here. There was a famous tack piano in this room that Brian Wilson did Good Vibrations on, the Doors played on, and then fast forward to the 80s, Prince came and asked Paul Camerata if he could have that piano to give to his father. It was an upright tack piano. He said, I really like this piano. It was just sitting in the hallway back there, but he loved it, and Paul gave it to him, and he gave it to his dad, and they shipped it back, and yeah, just a phenom. So then we move into controversy, and did you catch the tail end of that, Peggy?
Yeah, that was.
Hollywood Sound he was at, a board went down, everyone knows the story,
They
he
called
shows
over
up
here,
here.
yeah.
David, what are you working on then in Minneapolis? Are you still
I was
engineering
working-
records?
I was working on another lip sync record to follow up Funky Town, and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
There's
Lamont Cranston, was that around that time?
Yeah, Lamont Cranston. I was doing a radio broadcast every Friday for the FM station there.
Wow.
And we'd have pretty big touring groups come through and put on a concert every Friday night. It would be broadcast over the radio.
Where at? First Avenue?
No, we did it in the studio.
Oh, okay.
At ASI.
Gotcha.
And that was fun. I mean, I got to work with a lot of people that were huge.
Yeah.
Ben Sidran and people came through that were Michael. I mean, there was a lot of touring groups.
What was the console that they had in ASI?
Well, if you want to call it a console, it was a home-built board, and there was I couldn't tell what anything was, but it was, EQ and sends, and it was pretty elemental.
Is that studio still there?
No.
Is
no
bulldozed or gone? Something else now?
Yeah, it's gone.
It's a Starbucks.
They plowed that whole block under and rebuilt it.
Peggy, obviously Prince comes in here, and you guys do a little overdubs on Controversy.
Overdubs and mix. I think he wrote a couple here. I can't remember though.
And he wouldn't talk to you.
Well, he didn't. He just kind of mumbled,
Yeah.
and I think he was shy when
Yeah.
I knew him, and he liked to be comfortable in his situation. I don't think he was comfortable when he first got here. He'd been working at Hollywood Sound, and so yeah.
I just remembered the name of a Lamont Cranston song I love. It's called Darker Side, and then Johnny
Yeah.
Lang covered
Right.
it.
Yes.
That's such a great track. The piano
Yeah.
on that? Who played piano on that?
Bruce McCabe, the guy that wrote it.
Wow. Do you know that song? I don't even know if you can find it on like Apple Music. If you look up Johnny Lang, Darker Side, he did a cover of it in like the late 90s.
Yeah, it was on his first album.
Yep. Lie to Me. That's such a great track. You engineered a whole album for them, right?
I engineered it, produced it, and I wrote that song. So
Wow.
kind of have a stake in it.
Did you get points on Funky Town?
No, that was before anybody knew what points were.
Yeah, they didn't get points to engineers.
Yeah, I was.
Well, you kind of ghost produced it too, though.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Let's go after them.
Water under the bridge.
That's what everybody does nowadays. They go after them.
Yeah.
So obviously, then Peggy takes over. I was so surprised to learn that you and Peggy had never ever worked
It's
together.
funny, we never met each other because I was back there and you were out here.
Yeah, and it was weird because he didn't merge we didn't collaborate at all.
No.
And it was like the only time you were here was when you were working on Maserati and we were in Studio 3 and
Right.
you were in Studio 2, and that was the only time that I ever even saw David
Yeah.
Z. It was like, who's David Z?
Yeah, I was always sent on some other mission.
When you're tracking Maserati, are you just come flying out then for weeks at a time and
Yeah, I
staying with Prince?
I talked to Prince and he said, "Come on, I'm out here for the weekend and I want you to hear something." Okay. Packed my shirt and my pants and came out and he goes, "Well, you're going to be here for about a month because you're doing Maserati." I went, "Okay, well," I went and bought clothes.
And you call that communicative.
Were you like, okay,
Yeah,
some
what
good
am I gonna
money
do?
too?
That was a job. It was great.
And he produced them.
Yeah.
I still want to hear the story of I know my version of how he took Kiss. I want to hear your version. Because that was Maserati's, right?
Yeah, that was originally for Maserati.
And who did Prince write it?
Prince wrote, he gave me a demo of him just playing block chords and singing a verse and one chorus, and that was it. And we sat up all night going, how do we make this funky?
Yeah. And you did.
And yeah, I guess we did.
And all I remember is him going over and listening to it, and then all of a sudden it was his song. It was his song. But
Yeah, it was his song technically, but
yeah,
the groove was
it was great.
us. Or me.
So he's in Studio 2 with Maserati, David Z, and you're in Studio 3
With Prince.
working on 1999?
No, 1999 was in 2. I
that
don't know
was the
what we were
Parade
working
album.
on. Oh, that's right. It was the Parade.
Okay, so it
Right.
would have been later then.
Yeah. It was after Purple Rain and all of that.
So he obviously thought a lot of you to, he's out here in L.A., the capital of entertainment, studios, the record labels, and he wants to bring his old engineer that started with him out here to do a record for him.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful. It's great. And I think it was compounded by the fact that he didn't like other people that he didn't know. He wouldn't want to talk to people he didn't know.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to make the effort of trying to know somebody that he didn't know. So I'm lucky I was there.
Could you answer a question? Nate, who you met out in the traffic office, he has to know. He said, please ask David Z a step-by-step process of gating the guitar with the hi-hat on Prince's Kiss, and did he get production credit for Parade?
Like in production credit, give it to the machine. Yeah, the step-by-step process was really... when we were I was programming the Lynn drum, and I had a hi-hat part, and I ran it through a digital delay unit, and I printed the track, and I kept shifting back and forth from the output to the input and making a rhythm out of it, because it was just going and I made it go and did a rhythm. And then just played block chords on an acoustic guitar.
Just the A
and
major.
Gated it to that rhythm. And the gate opens up only when it's triggered, so the hi-hat triggered the gate to open, and you could really tighten up on it so it caught all those little rhythms. And I went, God, nobody can play that. It's a machine.
You can't reproduce it live.
Well, I know for years the Revolution and everybody else had a lot of trouble playing that rhythm because, they thought it was a pattern. It wasn't a pattern. It was random.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, do it until they realized that there was no pattern. Matt Fink finally got it down. But
we have to know something. This is so important for the studio. So, obviously, we have the Purple Rain Gold record. He tracks that with you live at First Avenue.
yeah.
He comes up with the movie here, gets in touch with the director, tells Morris we're going back to Minneapolis to make a film. When did he call you and say, hey, I'm coming to make my first motion picture?
Well, the concert was a benefit for a dance company that the choreographer for the group and for Time,
Yeah.
they were running out of money, and Prince wanted to do a benefit to give her some money. And he called me to record the concert because it was the first time that Wendy had played with the group and Mark Brown. So
Yeah.
it was all new songs except for a couple. And, it was a big deal. Prince was a regional artist, so he had a lot of people come to see him. And we decided to call the record plant Truck because that was the one I read about at the time. It was Custer McAllister and David Hewitt. They were together in this black truck that they had. And they both came, and I loved that truck. It was the same API board you got in 3. Not the same one, but it was still... It was something to do, and I didn't know what it was for. Nobody, he didn't tell me if it was for an album or for just the concert or what. And we recorded that concert, and 3 of the songs on Purple Rain came from that concert. They were the impetus for the album.
What 3 tracks were they, Peggy?
Yeah, he wound up using I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star.
And Purple Rain.
And Purple Rain. Those were all from that concert.
Okay, Purple Rain, I Would Die For You.
And Baby I'm a Star.
Baby I'm a Star.
Well, and Let's Go Crazy, David Leonard recorded in the warehouse.
Yeah, I didn't do Let's Go Crazy.
Yeah, he did it in the warehouse
Right.
live. Yeah.
So David, he was taking people from here going back to
yeah.
Minneapolis
Yeah.
and bringing Susan out here, and you're going this way, and it was just this big... Susan said he had 85 people on that tour, and he did a lot of great things for his his group, his employees. Everyone got their own hotel room. The philanthropy he would do, he would only do it on the condition there would be no press there. Obviously, he did the Purple Rain concert to benefit the choreographer.
Yeah.
So you just get the call that we're doing a concert, come record it, get a great truck, and here we are.
Yeah.
And is that the first time you heard Purple Rain?
Yeah. It's the first time he played it.
Yeah, wow.
The first time he played it. No one ever heard it before, and the audience was stood,
I heard the piano line here.
well, besides her.
Yeah.
Because he was working on
He
it
was
here.
working on it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, it was completely different, obviously, just a solo acoustic piano, but
I just remember the line, and he said, I'm going to make a movie. And it's like, okay. And off he went,
so then he brings the tracks back here. We got
I
to
think
find
they
out.
added strings,
Yeah.
We added strings.
At, like
and I think
midnight.
he replaced the bass with one that was plugged in directly because,
'Cause
from
it was
what I
noisy.
remember, there was a first wireless bass, and it didn't deliver full frequency. So I'm kind of think he might have done that. Not sure.
Those sessions were so crazy. He needed more tracks, so we had to bring in another machine, 224 tracks, and that was that Simpty. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. You know how tolerant he was of technology too. It's like if it didn't work, it just pissed him off. So yeah, it was pretty wild.
So Susan's at the Kiowa house, and did she come out too then?
Susan came out on Purple Rain. The end of Purple Rain is what I remember. But
What would you guys? You got two engineers in the studio then. Where
she wasn't an engineer. She was a tech. She was the
Okay.
maintenance guy, and that's what she was hired for. And it wasn't until later at his house that he, said set up the studio, and she said, "Who's engineering?" And he said, "You are." And so she sat down. That's just the way it went,
Yeah.
So that's the first time she engineered. She was just there to keep the equipment going, and she moved back there to, do that for his studio.
Yeah.
So Let's Go Crazy is tracked at the Warehouse. Some of the songs were done at Record Plant in New York also, correct? Or worked on there.
I'm not sure. I didn't work on that.
Yeah.
song.
Do you know anything about that? Because some of the three studios are credited. The Warehouse, Record Plant, and Sunset Sound.
Well, wouldn't Record Plant be the truck?
I guess that would get the credit then? Record Plant would get for the truck?
I don't know. His credits were always
Weird.
were confusing because he would give credit to people that didn't do anything, and then he would not give credit to people that did major parts of song. It's a guessing game.
Yeah.
My credit on Purple Rain was so confusing. He said, and I'd like to thank 3 Davids, and then he didn't say anything else after that. He meant David Leonard and me and David Tickle, and that was it. He just said, thank you to 3 Davids.
He wanted you to guess.
Yeah. So, that was cool. Your brother, though, you're working with him then.
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys close?
Yeah.
So he shows up with your brother back at Minneapolis, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like a
well,
homecoming thing. And
My brother was the first manager, Owen Husney. My brother worked for him.
oh, wow.
He was a runner, and he used to, be a runner. And he'd drive Prince around. That was part of his job in the beginning, and they became friends. And I suppose it drifted into jamming, and that's how Bobby became his drummer.
What was your relationship like with the Revolution and Bobby Z? And
That's
Those
the
are
thing
Prince's
is
troops.
They would come out here, but he never introduced me. I knew Wendy and Lisa because they lived here, and they were down, and Jill, because they lived here.
Yeah.
And so they would be at the studio more, but once in a while, Matt and Bobby would come into town, and I had no idea what for, but it wasn't like he merged us. It was really kind of bizarre. He kept the Minneapolis people separate from the LA people, except for Wendy and Lisa.
Yeah. What's your brother up to now?
My brother?
Yeah.
He works for a record distributor in Minneapolis,
He's back in Minneapolis.
and he still has part of the studio there.
Peggy, do you remember how much of Purple Rain was used from the live? How much was overdubbed? Not at all.
It was such a crazy time. That was when, after 1999, he just exploded. And then that's when the bodyguards came in, and there were just people everywhere. It was tough. That was a really tough session to try to manage.
That album, like Darling Nikki, was the reason Tipper Gore put Parental Advisory on album.
That's the song that Al Gore's wife
Tipper.
hated,
Right, Tipper.
and made everybody put stickers on the record.
And what was so funny is he wasn't like that, you know? I
I
mean,
know.
he could write about it, but he wasn't like that.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't, it wasn't like in the studio that, I mean, some of the things you would listen to and go, huh, that's pretty suggestive. But he wasn't like that. So it was interesting.
Yeah, it's shocking that he could sing about stuff like that.
When he was back in Minneapolis, was there a studio in the 80s that he would come home and track at? Was ASI still there?
No, he usually tracked at his warehouse, I think.
Okay.
He had a studio in his house, too.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the board that David and I designed, too, for his house.
So you and David Leonard designed it. Didn't he want it to be like the Domidio API in 3?
Yeah. I mean, he wanted a Domidio board, and he wanted us to design a board for his house, and we knew what he liked and what he, those boards are pretty straightforward, and what he didn't use, and we met with Frank Domidio and designed him a board. And
We got to get Brian Kehoe, who is like begging me to get Frank Domidio in here.
he's pretty old.
Still, I mean, if he can make the trek down.
He was great. He was great.
That was a nice room in his house.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just think, I mean, he could just do it. He could play all night long. That's
Yeah.
what he loved to do. I mean, he told me he went home so I could sleep. That was the only reason he ever went home.
Yeah.
He would have lived here. So
Did he ever say anything to you about Sunset Sound that he really liked the room? I mean, obviously he spent, close
I don't
to
know
a
if he
decade
came out
in-
and said it, but it was our place we went. I
Yeah.
mean, this was it. Studio 3.
He did. What did he do in Studio 2 then? Obviously,
1999 and some of the Time stuff we did and also
Little Red Corvette was done in 2.
No, that was done in Minneapolis.
It was. The
Yeah.
2 hits off that record were
Yeah.
done in Minneapolis. Okay.
And that was probably, was it you or Don that did that? I think it was Don that did it
think it was Don.
in his home studio. And then we did Vanity 6, and then it turned into Apollonia 6, and then we did 2 Time albums over there too.
So you and David did Apollonia 6, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Damn it, Peggy.
I know, I'm sorry. David he dropped in and worked on stuff, It was too much for one person.
Oh,
it
yeah.
really was. And there were times I needed help.
Yeah.
And David and I were dating at the time, so I would ask him to come help me, and he would drop in and do something, and,
I don't want Prince fans to get mad at me, but do you think that he was harder on Peggy because she was female?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think it was probably a way of, I don't want to say flirting, but I mean, kind of toying kind of thing. I don't want, because it wasn't flirting. That wasn't what it was. But I don't know.
Everyone, obviously, like we've been saying, he was a genius. He demanded a lot. Did that enhance your ability as an engineer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was finding other groups to work with, I told the record company, if I can work with Prince, I can work with anybody. Because I don't think anybody else is as hard on everybody as.
Or demanded speed like he did. I mean, you had to do it quick.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized that, I came from the 80s when there was huge budgets, and, it was
3
huge
days
excess.
on a kick drum.
Yeah, 3 days on a snare sound, and then they would change it. It's like, really? And with him, you had 5 minutes to get a drum sound.
Yeah.
And you better get it quick. And, you know, or you were blowing the groove. And so some of that stuff that I cut, I wasn't really, technically, I wasn't real proud of, but, you know, you didn't have time.
Yeah.
And if there was another take, then you could change something, but you better not touch even an EQ,
Right.
even just a click of an EQ he could hear, and he would get so pissed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the only thing you could do was kind of ease down. If it was, you know, pinning, you could ease it down, but you better not touch anything. So
Yeah.
he wanted it just the way he could hear it in his headphones.
Yeah. He put his front of house engineers through hell.
Yeah.
Because I remember one story. He had to get a new front of house engineer from Clare Brothers, and they were rehearsing at Paisley Park. This is much later, and let's say the guy's name was Joel. I think it was, but Prince set up all the board and everything across this huge sound stage, and the guy just walked in and he said, "Don't touch anything." I got it all set up. Joel said, okay. And Prince went back and started playing with the band. They were rehearsing. And Joel turned a little something, and Prince stops the band.
Yeah.
And he says over the mic, "Joel, phone call." and Joel has to walk all the way down to the front desk and say, "There's a phone call?" And the secretary said, "No, there's no phone call."
Oh, my God.
And he walks back, and the band's playing. And he, after a while, turns a little knob, and he stops the band and said, "Joel, phone call."
Yeah.
And then Joel he got it. He got it.
Wow.
It's like, don't
That's
touch
awesome.
anything.
Yeah, you could not touch anything.
Yeah.
And it was brutal, because that's what you did. You know, it was like,
But I thought that
Was
was
that
pretty
just
fun.
astonishing, though? From seeing him in Grand Central at ASI, North Minneapolis, a young kid, and then you watching him get the Warner Brothers deal to Purple Rain stardom. I mean, it had to be pretty amazing just to witness that kind of
It was
growth.
amazing to watch his development.
Did
and
you know it was going to happen?
his confidence level and everything else? He grew right in front of my eyes. It was a beautiful thing to watch.
yeah, he did grow in front of your
Yeah.
eyes. And that's what, when I went to see him at the Forum, he had matured so musically. He had matured, and he played with people as opposed to just
Yeah.
himself. And I just thought he was finally maturing and playing
He was
with
the best,
great.
one of the best live performers I've ever seen. He was the best live
Yeah,
performer I've
he
ever
really was. He really was.
Who else have you seen that was?
That was that good?
Yeah, or even-
Nobody.
Yeah, he
I mean,
performed.
I've seen good bands before with great sound systems, but he was so obsessed with everything, including the EQ, the bass response. I mean, he made sure everyone was on point. Everybody.
What was your favorite band that he had? Revolution or Third Eye or?
Well, I'm biased. I like the Revolution. I think they did his major stuff. That that was his development. The other bands, I'm not so. Although there's a great players in those bands too, but
The Revolution was his band too. I mean, he groomed them, and that's the thing, is
Yeah,
they
they-
were really locked in.
even though they weren't all virtuosos, they did the solid parts.
Yeah.
I mean, I went and saw the Revolution by themselves, and sounded just like Prince without him. I mean, they were the ones that did most of the tracking. Prince had the guitar slung over his shoulder while he was singing. So, they were great.
And for him to be able to release that control was telling.
Did he get scared when he would release the control and someone
have
else
no
had an
idea.
idea?
I don't know. He had Chick to protect him usually.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he wasn't a big guy, so I suppose he was scared in crowds, because you don't understand because you're not a little guy like that, and he was, and everyone overshadowed him height-wise and mass. So yeah, that's why he had a bodyguard.
Yeah.
I told a story when I think it was Jesse Johnson and Prince, they were here, and it might have been during controversy, I don't really remember, but they got recognized, and they had to run. And they were laughing so hard because, that was kind of the first time in L.A. that he was recognized and chased by fans. So it's pretty cute.
You did Jesse's album also.
Yeah.
Was that done here?
That was fun. I did it in his basement.
Okay.
Jesse's a sweetheart, isn't he?
He had a great studio in his basement, and we did it. It was 14 below outside, so it was really tough to get out there, but that was a great album. I liked it. Maybe not as sonically present as something I would have done in Sunset Sound, but
Yeah.
you got to work where you work.
Do you remember the first time you came to Sunset Sound?
First time I came to Sunset Sound was when I was a songwriter in L.A. in 1968,
Okay.
and I made friends with Dave Mason.
Love him.
And he was doing his album in this room.
Oh, shit.
This was the room, by the way. This
Yeah.
was the room.
Yeah, and Tommy LaPuma was the producer, and Al Schmidt was the engineer.
Wow,
And I
what
never
a team.
knew anybody. I just wanted to come and see. And it was fascinating to watch Dave put together his album. And, I mean, they called Leon Russell at 3 in the morning and said, "Can you come over and play a piano part?" He was here in a second. It's like, who stays up that late and does it? But
Those guys.
back then, everybody
Yeah,
did.
everybody did.
Yeah.
1968.
So that was my first impression.
That's right when we built Studio 2. And, this room is just, it's just, look at the ceiling of it, how slanted it is. It's such an
Well, it was
iconic
it
place.
was a garage.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look at that's where the oil would spill down.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Well, Jay Graydon was doing a guitar overdub, and it was raining really, really hard. And he came out here and he said, "God, that floor is shiny." And he started to step down, and it had flooded.
Oh,
And this was all water.
wow.
It was really scary. So, yeah, and it was all slanted. The-
Over in that corner,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you're standing or sitting right where Eddie Van Halen stood to do Eruption. I mean, one of the greatest guitar pieces ever.
Yeah. Well, I don't think everyone realizes just how many great records were done in this studio.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a page in Billboard listing everybody who's recorded here, it's mind-blowing.
Mind blowing.
Well, and the feeling in this place is too. It's just it carries over. I know that sounds airy fairy, but it's true. There's a vibe here that's really. It's not fancy. It's just a
And
great.
it's not corporate at all.
Yeah, and that was what I always loved about it.
Yeah.
It was a family-owned business, and Tootie was amazing. I mean, he was the sweetest man.
Yeah.
I never saw him mad. I heard he had a temper, but he took me aside and told me to not be a ball buster.
Do you remember Tootie Camerata?
Yeah.
You met him a couple times?
Yeah.
Numerous times?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have been able to.
I mean, I'd never really had much cause to talk with anybody because I was always in the room.
And there's so many great drummers, too, that say that the drum sounds in this room and 2 are just the best in the world.
Yeah.
It really was. I remember Ringo playing right here. I can't remember who he was playing with. I remember the engineer was Warren Dewey, and I was assisting on it. But, yeah, this was a great room, and so was 2. 3 wasn't. I didn't love 3's drum sound, but it passed. It was okay.
We stay 90% busy here. Still to this day, people want to go record where the Doors recorded, where Van Halen recorded, where Prince recorded. I mean, still, even back in those days, in the 80s, people came to this room because that's where their favorite records were done. Mm-hmm. And it still happens today. Michael Bublé just left this room after 3 months. David Crosby's in Studio 2 right now. It's just an exciting place.
If you listen to records and music, and you're listening to the rooms too.
Big
So,
time.
if you hear a song that sounds familiar, you might be hearing this room or another room that somebody else worked in. And that means a lot because you're not just recording direct, like in your bedroom, unless your bedroom sounds great, which some people do, but you want the sound of the reflection of the room.
Sure.
Plus our echo chambers, too. Everybody said they're not echo chambers, it's reverb. And I said, no, we had echo chambers.
Yep.
Live echo chambers.
What's your opinion about Van Halen and those records that they made in Studio 2 here?
I like Van Halen.
Yeah. But I mean, they track so much live that
Yeah,
that's the room you're hearing and a lot of that stuff.
That's the way to do it. I love tracking a band live. That it's a whole different,
Well, and there's the energy of that, too.
and the leakage is important.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a ton of your fans, if you guys are up for some fan questions. Back to Funky Town. I've always loved the way the cowbell in Funky Town is mixed. It is fairly dry and prominent in the verses, but on the breakdown transitions, the dry signal goes away and it's pushed back into the room-type reverb before disappearing for the chorus. It's a clever bit of mixing and a unique way to approach smoothly bridging two different rhythmic sections of a song. That's a pretty big compliment.
That's cool. That's cool. If
What's
he
the
wants to
question?
know how I
Yeah,
got
yes,
that
yes.
sound, it's basically it's one of those. It's a plate, and we turn the plate down, the EMT plate, all the way to 0, and
Yeah.
then the only thing you heard was the return of the plate. You didn't hear the direct cowbell.
Oh, wow.
That was muted, and so it goes back in the room because it really just goes back into the EMT, and all you're hearing is a return of that.
And to add, that C minor 7 chord in Funky Town is one of my favorite clean sound guitar ever.
I got that from Junior Walker and the All-Stars.
Nice.
Shotgun. Remember that song?
Of course.
Dang it! It's the same lick, same chord.
Cool. All right, another one. Hey, so looking forward to this episode. Prince still loved Keypex Gates on guitar late into his recording career. I've always been curious, though, what direct box did he prefer to use back then on drum machines, synths, bass, and guitars?
Direct boxes.
Yeah.
Whatever you have available, I think.
Right. Those
I
are
don't
pretty
think there was
simple.
any special direct box. It was probably,
It's not for the drum machine
what
either.
the studio direct boxes are.
Okay, yeah. There you go, Dan Saxton.
Yeah, well, Prince didn't use a lot of DIs. He
No.
didn't.
No, even when we used, direct, what you think is direct is usually like a champ, a Fender champ, a small amp.
Well, and also he had those guitar pedals. He had those. That,
Yeah, right.
That little board of guitar, and he put everything through that. I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't just guitars. He put everything that. He just had great ideas, and you just went with them. If they worked, they worked.
Yeah.
Do you think they were inspired by anything he had heard or seen, or he just came up with
I
things?
think
No,
he just
I-
came up with it.
He fiddled around with everything till he got what the sound was he wanted.
I think he
And-
knew. I think he could hear it in his head, and he knew what he wanted.
He's a savant. All right, question David, question Peggy, question. I got a ton of them here. The Kiss demo didn't sound like a hit. After David worked his magic, did he think he had a smash on his hands, or was he extremely surprised how big a hit Kiss was?
I never know what's going to be
Nobody does.
a single. I mean, I'm a singles guy, and I love to make singles, and I think that's the way to get ahead. But you never know how. Purple Rain. I never knew that was going to be such a big hit. I mean, you can't predict that. If I could, I'd be a millionaire. But you can't predict it.
And you think it's something that you like, but not everybody likes
Yeah.
what you like, or hears what you hear, or is touched by what you are touched
I've
by.
loved lots of songs that I thought were going to be great,
Yeah.
but they didn't. Vice versa,
Yeah.
You just don't know.
With your time with Prince in the studio, did you ever hear something that stood out and you're like, oh, whoa, that's going places.
I knew the things I liked. I thought, when I first started up, well, I started with Controversy, but by the time 1999 came around, Little Red Corvette was great, Raspberry Beret, that wasn't on that one. Raspberry Beret was an old song. I don't know where he put it. I think he tried to put it on different albums.
What are you talking about?
Raspberry Beret. That's an old song, and
Yeah.
he tried
You know what I remember about that song is he played it by himself on a piano at one point, and I realized how intricate the chord progression is. It's not easy. It's a very complex set of chords.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about it.
There's that big piece on YouTube of him. Someone leaked audio or a tape because there's like 2 hours. If you just Google Sunset Sound Prince piano, it's a master tape that's up, and it's like 2 hours of him just sitting at the Steinway in Studio 3. You never heard that, Peggy?
No.
Oh, go to YouTube. It's got like,
Who put that out?
I don't know. It's everywhere, though. And then we played a little bit of it, and Prince's estate, his attorneys, everyone emailed me and like,
Cease and desist.
Yeah. hand over all the master tapes. I look at this was already up on YouTube. I just reposted it.
I'll tell you something. Somebody got a hold of me and said, "Well, good for you for making some money off this." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "There was an engineer that sold the lyrics to When Doves Cry, and he said he worked on it." And it was like, no, I didn't sell those, and I was the one that worked on it. So it was, people are claiming all kinds of stuff. So I don't know.
Does that make you kind of sick, both of you? That
I think it's sad,
Yeah.
actually. I just think it's sad that you have to claim something.
I think a lot of people don't even understand what it is we do.
Yeah.
Question, Peggy.
Miss.
Did Prince ever come into the studio with demos almost done, or was it usually all in his head and he put it on tape from scratch?
Both. I mean, sometimes there would be something on a tape that he'd say, go get, because Anvil cases of tapes came from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And then we would add to that when he packed up. But sometimes we'd work on something that it was in his case, and sometimes we would start from scratch. And then sometimes we'd finish a whole song and never hear it again.
Yeah. There's been a lot of songs that we finished that I finished that I thought was going to be great and never heard about it.
Question, David. Are there any Prince songs that you wish Prince had let you produce or remix? Any unreleased tracks that you worked on?
Are there any that he wanted me to remix? Is that what you're saying?
The question is, are there any Prince songs that you wish Prince had let you produce or remix?
Yeah, but I get a chance. I just remixed the film of the concert for Purple Rain, the original one, for the Netflix movie, and I got a chance to dig back into it, and it was fun. It's like, I recorded it a long time, 35 years ago, so I knew what was there, but I got to do my mix, which was fun.
In the mid-'90s, the last song you worked with Prince, I believe, was Most Beautiful Girl in the World, correct?
Yeah.
Why was that the last song?
Because I moved to Memphis. I moved out of Minneapolis. I was sick of... I did a couple big rock groups like Big Head Todd and the Monsters, and a couple others, and then the record companies started sending me stuff just like that because they always want to imitate and have their version. And about 2 albums in, I said, I'm not doing anything that's meaningful. And so I discovered a blues artist out of Wisconsin. And I went down to Memphis to a convention, and I ran smack into Gary Bells, who was starting the House of Blues label at the time. And they offered to ship me to Memphis, and I could take over the studio there, Kiva. And it sounded good at the time for me because I wanted to switch styles and do meaningful music, and the blues, to me, sounded pretty meaningful.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
I was there for I was in Memphis for 3 or 4 years, and then I moved to Nashville because there was an actual record business in Nashville.
Right.
And the House of Blues record label didn't last. They dissolved it, so I wasn't hired anymore.
I was just at the House of Blues studio. Well, I told you I'm friends with Gary Bell's son, Victory, and then they had the studio in Encino at his home.
Yeah,
And I think, but the one in Memphis was the first studio.
yeah.
Now they have one in Nashville, but I think they sold all that.
Yeah, he's not in the studio business anymore.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's knows a lot about music too.
Yeah.
And you worked with Janet Jackson too on some stuff, right?
I did one song on her Control album when I was in Minneapolis before I left. And I guess Jimmy and Terry decided to put it on the record, so that's good.
Nice.
I did a demo with Terry and Jimmy with Janet here in Studio 3.
You, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Janet Jackson, and Peggy McCree, Studio 3.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the track?
Nasty Girls, and she didn't like it. She didn't like it. She didn't think it was her image,
Oh,
which is true.
So did Prince write that, or Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis wrote it for her? They produced it?
No, I don't remember. I really don't remember. I thought that was a Prince song, but maybe not. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember she didn't like. It wasn't her.
it's hard to
wasn't
tell
what
the difference. I mean, they honestly, I love Jimmy and Terry, but that first Janet Jackson record was licks from Prince. They totally took all the licks from Prince.
Really?
Well, if you listen to it, it's the
Yeah.
same synthesizer licks, the same grooves,
And they
different
got,
drum sound, but
yeah, they canned, or Prince canned them because, well, Terry
They missed a show.
Well, I
Yeah,
thought they missed, and we're
they
working
missed-
outside of Prince too.
yeah, they missed a gig because they were working.
They were trying to get something going outside of it, and
Which they did.
then they got snowed in, and
Oh, really?
That was the best thing he could have done for him.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, right.
They're doing great.
Yeah.
Still to this day. So how did Paisley Park gets built? And then was it Studio B there that was kind of built for?
Studio B is a copy of Studio 3 here.
And
Same board, same Domidio modified API. I mean, we worked in that Studio 3 here so much that Prince wanted to make sure we had a room like that because he didn't like leaving Minneapolis. He didn't like coming out here.
Only in the winter he liked leaving Minneapolis.
What?
He left in the winter.
Yeah, right.
you didn't ever go to Paisley, right?
I miss Paisley. Yeah, David Leonard and I were supposed to be his engineers there and all that kind of stuff, but
David went, and then you stayed here.
No,
David didn't go either?
no, Paisley wasn't built.
Oh, yeah.
Susan never even worked at Paisley.
Yeah, he wanted to build it for a long time. And then I was doing Jill Jones' record at Electric Lady in New York. And Sal, who built Paisley Park, was the tech at Electric
wow.
Lady. So I gave his name to Prince, and before I even knew it, Sal designed the whole thing. He designed the whole thing, he built it, and he was the guy.
Yeah, it was weird because I always thought Susan worked there, and she said no, it wasn't built by the time she
No,
left.
it was...
She worked with him in the warehouse all the time.
Yeah, she worked with us in the warehouse.
Right.
I don't remember seeing her at Paisley Park.
No, I don't think and she lived in Minneapolis.
Was that
Moved
Lisa
to Minneapolis.
Chamblay then that got into Paisley?
What's that?
Lisa Chamblay?
I don't know that name.
You know
Oh,
her, right?
I know Lisa. Yeah, she was one of the last women that worked with him.
Oh,
When was the last time you've been to Paisley?
well, I was out there trying to fix the board about a half a year before he died. The last time I was there.
Was he home?
What?
Was Prince there?
Yeah,
So you got to see him 6 months before he passed away.
yeah. He walked in and he hugged me. I hadn't seen him in years.
Wow.
I thought that was nice, you know.
I always wanted to get in touch with him. The last time I saw him, my daughter was 8 months old. So
Yeah.
Was the last time you saw him at the concert then, when he met your daughter or held your daughter?
Here.
Oh, that was here. At
yeah,
Studio
I
3.
brought her down to Studio 3. He was working.
What year was that?
She was born in '86.
So you hadn't seen him since '86? I mean, where you're face-to-face talking? Holy cow.
And I always wanted to, we had a real connection, and I really wanted to reach out. I just never. The management company was gone. He was on his own. Everybody I knew at the record company, they were gone. So.
A lot of people have said that in the last couple of months of his life, when he was at Paisley, he was trying to right his wrongs. He was contacting people. I mean, do you think he regretted kind of being rough on people, maybe? He softened up?
I have no idea.
You had mentioned that he was pretty beat up by life. He had lost children, marriages,
Well, and Susan Rogers made an observation. She said that me and Lisa had him when he was more human than when she had him, and then Sylvia Massey, because then he was he was rock and roll. I mean, he was a mogul by then, and he became a mogul when I was working with him.
Yeah.
But he was, just a kid from Minneapolis when I first met him, and I think he returned to that.
Yeah.
And I think, life had beat him up, and
I just never knew he was in so much pain.
you could tell he was in pain by how mean he was. I mean, people aren't that. When people are in pain, they offload it, and that's the way I always looked at him.
And the drugs he was taking would make
Well, that's the part I was surprised.
I swore that it was not drugs.
I swore to everybody that wasn't it.
I got so mad when I heard that. I said, he did not do drugs.
Yeah.
You got fired if you... I said, no, that man did not do drugs. So I was really, really surprised that it was what he died of.
Yeah.
But he was in a lot of pain from physical pain, from jumping off those risers in 6-inch heels. The way he performed, he gave it all to the audience. And he paid for it.
Yeah, he would have ripped himself in half trying to perform.
Yeah.
Where were you, David, when you heard that he had passed away?
I was in Nashville.
And it just was all over the news all of a sudden. And were you heartbroken?
I was amazed, heartbroken, disappointed. It was like this guy was never going to die.
Yeah.
That was how his impression was he's going to go on forever. And that was just a big surprise.
Yeah.
Where were you?
I was at home, and the receptionist called me that used to work here. She called me
Lisa
at 7.
Matthews?
No, her name was Suzanne Edgren.
Yep.
And she called me at 7 or 8 in the morning, and she said, "Did you hear?" And I said, "No, what?" And she said that Prince had died. And then she called me back to remind me that I had brought her into the studio to listen to When Doves Cry at 8 o'clock in the morning. We had worked for 2 days straight. And I said, "This is an amazing song. You got to hear it." And she reminded me of that. And then I contacted Sheila. I reached out to her.
E?
Yeah. Just through text. And then, yeah.
David, what are some ways the Eventide harmonizer was utilized on Prince's productions? What did he like about it?
The harmonizer?
Yeah.
Well, it was great for a lot of things. For a vocal delay effect, to add a harmony part to things, to doubling guitars. It had a unique delay time constant shift. It was a time shifter, and plus it was a delay, and we used it for a lot of things. Kick drum would be great.
Did he, when he played guitar, was it DI or did he have a mic'd up amp?
Both.
Both, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what mic he would use?
Back then,
No. It was usually, if you're recording guitar, it's one dynamic mic and one condenser mic, and you kind of put them together.
David, I would love to know how involved was he in the EQing, panning, mixing of his tracks? Did he leave most of those choices up to the engineer, you, or take full control of
No,
the
he liked to do it himself.
Really?
Yeah.
There were times that he would, he would throw his chair back and say, "Get a sound on this," because he was lost.
Yeah.
But other than that, he liked to play himself. He just got lost in the studio. He loved it.
Yeah.
He was
did.
limited to some of the stuff that he could do, but what he could do, he did.
I mean, you're very responsible for teaching him a lot about
That's
recording.
what Lisa told me, that he carried that through until the technology would not handle it anymore.
Did you see him more advanced in working the consoles and about his technical ability rising after being with Peggy for a few years? He obviously started tracking the vocals, but he would make everyone leave, but then he would hang the Neumann U47.
Yeah, he didn't want anybody to hear him to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Or he
I never
wanted,
heard him make a mistake.
I know. He wanted to be free to try different things.
Well, and I think too there was, what triggered that was it was late. We had finished the track and we were doing vocals, and I got tired and I missed a punch, and he was having to communicate, and if he was doing it himself, he didn't have to communicate.
Right.
He could just create, and it didn't interrupt the creative flow for him, and I think he enjoyed that. He spent hours layering vocals.
All right, just a few more technical questions. Obviously, I mean, he's the greatest artist ever, so people are just so curious. These are kind of coming in live. Can somebody please explain, did Apollonia actually write any tracks?
Not that I know of.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw her under the bus.
A lot of people said they wrote tracks after he died, but
He didn't collaborate when I worked with him.
No, I don't
it
think
was
so.
all him,
no,
So-
he didn't. He was always by himself. I mean, I wrote a couple of songs with him and Levi, but that was minimal. It wasn't anything major.
Yeah. David Z, huge fan. Did Prince play drums with the drum machine on certain records, then mix the drum machine out? Like a glorified click track? Jesse Johnson hinted towards this on another interview.
I don't think so.
I never saw that either.
I never heard anything like that.
No, when he did it,
He was so good at programming the machine that,
and he was a good drummer.
yeah, he was a great drummer. I don't know. If he did something like that, I would think he'd leave the drums in, but
Yeah.
Yeah, he just decided in his head what, he would come in and either he would use the drum machine or he'd sit
Yeah.
down and try to work out a rhythm on the, on the kit, and then he would go from there.
You don't remember how you mic'd the drums at all?
Oh, jeez. It was what we did in the 80s. I really don't remember. I wish I did. I mean, but it was just the standard what everybody,
Yeah.
Of course, I never, 421
yeah, it
for
was
the toms,
nothing different than
than what they were doing,
what they were doing. Yeah,
whatever that was.
yeah,
What kind of tape did he use?
456.
Well,
What-
see, he was using 250 when I worked with him.
What calibration?
Oh well, I don't know.
Jeez.
You got to ask the techie that.
How hard did you hit it for saturation?
I use my ears. I don't know I never used meters.
He hit really hard.
Yeah.
Was it 124 track machine or two? If
Sometimes
it was one,
it was two,
yeah.
but most of the time it was one when I worked with him. It was pretty simple what he did.
Yeah.
Basic tracks, and then his vocals were huge. I mean, and his guitar parts.
Yeah, the only time he'd use a lot of tracks were probably for background vocals and if he wanted to stack his harmony, but pretty simple.
And even then it was, for the most part, it was just 24, with tracks left over sometimes.
Yeah.
David Z, your snare sound on Fine Young Cannibals is one of the best snare sounds ever.
This is a Prince.
Which
it is. How did you get the snare sound on Driver?
It's a sandwich. It's a sandwich of drum sounds. It was the Lynn 9000 drum machine, and I used a snare from that machine. Plus, I used another snare out in the studio that I hooked up an Oritone speaker, set it up on top of that snare, and mic'd the snare, and then pumped the electronic snare sound through that speaker, so I got a real drum playing at the same time.
Wow.
And I also hit a drum head that was off the drum, and it's and synced them together. And on the drum head, I boosted 1K about 40 million dB, and the tail of it was actually I used to do this a lot. I took a ghetto blaster, and you could turn on a non-station, so it was just hissing,
Yeah.
and I gated that to the snare, so it went put a tail on it, and I think that was the track I boosted a lot of 1K, but it was a sandwich of sounds.
I don't want to get pulled off YouTube, but
Yep.
It's a great snare sound.
it's awesome.
Yeah, that's mainly the hiss from the blaster you're hearing.
Other than that Neumann U47, what mics were used on his vocals? I know when I worked with him, he used Richards Corby 67. What kind of compression was used?
We always use the same thing,
Yep.
the U47 and the LA2A.
Peggy, that story, though, of you when you guys tracked How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore, was that your birthday?
No.
That was a different song.
Yeah, we were finished with 1999, and it was like kind of relaxed finally. And he came in and got us drunk, and we cut that song.
And that was like one of the first times you ever saw him drink alcohol, even, right?
Oh, I don't think he drank. I think he just wanted me to drink. So yeah, it was. Yeah,
He had a runner go get a bottle of Spumante, Asti.
for him, and then Remy for me, and we sat and had a cup. Yeah, he drank. Yeah.
At the
He had a couple-
Steinway in Studio 2 this time,
Yeah.
though. So you guys wander in Studio 2. He sits down and
Says- He says, "What do you drink?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Alcohol. What do you drink?" And I said, "Remy Martin." He said, "Order a bottle of Remy Martin." And I said, "No. You don't want me to drink."
Yeah.
But we did.
And then he just said,
He just sat down and started. I loved that song. I thought
Yeah.
that was beautiful what he did there. But
and then that appeared with, because you worked on the hits and B-sides, correct?
What song is that?
How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore? The piano?
Yeah.
Didn't you compile that with the hits and B-sides album?
My memory is not that
Sure.
good.
It's all right.
And I don't know what side anything wound up on.
I never knew what that wound up on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I never knew if it was as good as I
Yeah,
remembered.
I'm not
it.
sure if I ever will hear the songs I thought I was going to hear.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not sure.
And you never knew they changed titles. I mean,
Right.
what he told you was the title was not necessarily what it ended up being. So
Yeah. You, that was the second take, though. He just played it, you guys tracked it, and it was done.
well, it was a B-side.
Yeah.
So he could just. It actually went for a long time. We faded it out, but he just sat and played the piano, which I just loved to listen to him play the piano.
David, what advice would you give yourself at 18 years of age today?
What advice would I give myself at 18 years of age?
When you were 18, was that right when you came to LA, kind of? Or was it a little later?
No, he was 23. He said.
I was 22.
That's when you
22.
came. And then you left at 26?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's say 21 years old. What would you tell yourself today if you could go back?
Keep going.
Exactly what you did.
Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to say at that age?
No regrets at all?
Well, of course I have regrets, but it's too late now, isn't it?
Yeah.
No sense in looking back.
Peggy, what would you tell yourself at 18 years old?
18, I was.
You're riding horses out in the desert.
Chasing Boyd. I was 23, 24 when I started here. And somebody said, "How'd you get started?" And I said, I was just too naive to think I couldn't do it, I was raised like a boy, and I just thought I could do anything. My dad needed boys on that farm, and he got all girls, so...
Here's another FYC, Fine Young Cannibals question. Who played the kinky, Schnitzer-esque, funky, clean guitar on She Drives Me Crazy? I bet David himself did it. Who played the kinky Schnitzer-esque, funky,
Schnitzer?
clean guitar on She Drives Me Crazy?
What's
How-
kinky schnitzer-esque?
Who did play guitar on that track?
Andy Cox, really.
Okay.
He was the group's guitar player.
Paradigm Productions. Please, I would love to hear the story behind Darling Nikki. How was it created, step by step, from what instrument to the next? Did he come into the studio knowing exactly what he wanted the song? It's one of the most unique written songs by Prince.
Did you do Darling Nikki?
I don't think I did that song.
I didn't
It's
do
off
it either.
Purple Rain, so yeah.
He didn't
think
play
he-
it at the concert.
Yeah.
I think he cut that live. I didn't,
Yeah.
or he cut it at his house a long time ago.
Yeah.
They did a tribute to him. Sheila did a tribute to him around the Grammys or something.
Yeah, at the
I can't
Nokia
remember.
Theater. I went
Yeah.
to it.
Did you? I was
Yeah.
there too.
Gary too was played with. Gary did one of my favorite songs is "The Cross" off Sign of the Times,
Hmm.
and Gary played that.
Yeah, that was good.
Yep.
Well, and the Foo Fighters did Darling Nikki.
Yeah.
And I was watching an interview with Dave Grohl, and somebody asked him if you could come back as anybody, who would you come back? And he looked and he said, Prince. I just love that. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more important for artists to create singles now to get noticed, or do a whole album?
I always think it's more important for artists to do singles or songs that could be singles. I mean, unless they want to do a 10-minute version of, we did that already.
Yeah.
But I always, like I said, I'm a singles guy. I believe that there's a song that will spearhead the record that gets played on the radio. I mean, not necessarily on the radio, but just is more of an audience favorite,
I don't get attention.
less indulgent.
Yeah.
Sure. You agree?
Yeah.
What's the track that you're most proud of?
I can't answer that.
No?
I got a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some standouts. Of course, Kiss is a standout song.
Yeah.
Funky Town's a standout song. She Drives Me Crazy is a standout song. Those are the high points, I think, that I've done.
I'm a musician and I work in a studio, and I wanted to ask you, was it more important for you to be admired or judged by your peers in the studio and music industry, or the fans?
I do it. Well, my experience is when you record in the studio, we're doing it to make ourselves happy.
Yeah.
And if we make ourselves happy and the group is happy and I'm happy, that's all I care about. I mean, because if we're happy, then hopefully everybody else is going to be happy, because we're noticed for our taste, not just music.
Yeah.
It's like, is our taste translatable to the public? Well, we proved it over and over, and yeah.
Hopefully. And I think if you make it for your peers, it's not, it's different than when you're making it. Because I know that people have said, I'll be listening to something that I did, and it was like, oh, God. And they said, Peggy, people don't hear that. And that's what we nitpick, and we listen to everything. But, if you make a good sounding record or it's a good song, people like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how Prince was. If the groove
Yeah.
was there,
Yeah.
that's all that
you,
matters.
You can't fuck up a good song.
Oh, amazing.
People try. But
Well, I think it's amazing that I get to come in here and speak with both of you, and you're so accomplished. And are you sick of talking about Prince?
it's a fact of life. I don't talk about them all the time,
I
but
know.
people want to know,
Yeah.
and who better to tell them, I guess.
Well, and when I first started working with him, people were making fun of him,
Yeah.
and I was protective of him because I really respected his talent, and there were, and the studio it's schlubby, You know, we don't come down. And he always dressed really nicely, and I think he was kind of he was an oddity in life because he was so talented. But yeah, I protected him in that way. I was very protective of him, and
Sure.
people made fun of him.
Yeah, other bands here at the studio even. We've heard
He
stories.
broke a lot of rules, and a lot of people didn't like him in the
Yeah.
beginning. I mean, the black audience didn't like him in the beginning at all, because he wasn't like the OJs, and he wasn't like the Temptations,
Right.
and he didn't do what everybody else was doing. He mixed, you know, David Bowie, and it was the guy that did, you know, what the hell? He mixed English punk with R&B, and he was very influenced by that big, you know, and he educated people as to what new music could be.
Why do you think he didn't want to be encapsulated into black music? Because he had your brother even as a drummer, as a white drummer, didn't he say?
Yeah,
that
and he had Matt Fink, and he had Wendy and Lisa.
yeah.
I mean, he was very diversified, and he had a group that was females, males, black, white. He sang about that, black, white, Puerto Rican. You know, he believed in mixing people and integration, and not what we're doing today, that's for sure.
Well, what do you think he would have thought about the George Floyd?
What?
What do you think?
Great question.
What he would have thought about George Floyd in Minneapolis being killed? Would he have? I mean, I like everybody felt, but I just wonder. I always wondered if he would speak out, because he wasn't really.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either, because you didn't see him speak out for causes.
No.
And what he did represent was very quiet, and it was children usually, and, you know, promoting.
Well, I don't think the divisiveness that we have in the United States, it didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
And he died before that happened.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know if he would have spoken out or not.
Somebody told me that Minneapolis was one of the hardest places it was racist. It was very racist and divided. And
I never saw it. I mean,
I didn't feel it, you know.
of course, I'm not black, so I
Yeah, I'm
didn't.
not
I didn't
black, yeah.
experience anything like that. I mean, it probably was.
When I went back there after he had passed, he was everywhere. I mean, that's their native son. Things are purple, and he's, you know, I mean, he's honored there.
Yeah, it was all over the world, really.
Yeah.
Do you have any desire to go back to Paisley now that he's passed, just to visit?
I'd like to go back to work. I love that room.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
I've never seen Paisley.
Can we get
Nobody
Peggy?
can believe
and-
that.
Oh, really?
I've
Oh.
never been in there.
Yeah, I had an office there for 8 years.
Did you?
Wow.
And basically, the Studio 2 was mine. I ran it.
That's
Studio
crazy.
A was his.
Oh,
What artist did you work with in two?
Oh, gee. In Paisley Park?
Yeah.
Well, that's where I did a lot of things. The Fine Young Cannibals.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Fine Young Cannibals was
They-
done there?
Yeah, they came to Minneapolis because they would have a hard time getting together in London because they were so distracted.
Yeah.
And the record label head said, maybe we'll ship them to Minneapolis where there's nothing to do. And that's what happened. They came on the plane and they were in culture shock.
I bet.
Wow.
And Roland Gift, the singer, brought his own bag of brown rice with him because he didn't think we'd have brown rice in Minneapolis. And they were there. I mean, it worked. They had nothing to do but work.
But, yeah.
And when it's kind of out in the field, so they really had no place to go. But
That's in Chanhassen, right?
yeah, and it was a lot less built up than it is today. You know, I did a lot of records there.
If I buy the plane tickets, can we take Peggy to Paisley?
Yeah,
You can get us in the door?
yeah. I actually, that story that Dave Chappelle told about playing basketball
Yeah.
was true. I was there that night.
And that, you know, somebody said, Peggy, you've got to watch this. And I said, oh my God, that was really well done. Dave Chappelle
Yeah.
did a really good job.
It was hysterical, but it's a true story.
I know.
22nd, time out on the field. Wait a minute. So Dave Chappelle, The Chappelle Show, was an amazing show. He did a skit with Rick James playing basketball and then making him pancakes. Please tell me that you were there that night?
Yeah, I was there that night, yeah.
Can you please tell us the story?
He rented, it was in the Hollywood Hills. He rented a house that used to be the Shah of Iran.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if that's who owned it, but that's who was there before Prince. And it was this real fancy house. And I think it was after a concert here. And we were all over there, and that happened. We're sitting around the kitchen, and there was, Prince's group of people, and
Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy, yeah.
And because that's how even the skit goes, that they came back to the house. Did they play basketball?
Yeah, there was a basketball court. And in the kitchen, we're all sitting around eating and drinking, and Prince goes, you want to play basketball? And he
It's like 2 in the
talked
morning?
in a low voice. Huh?
Was it like 2 in the morning or something?
Yeah, it was probably late.
Oh, my gosh. So then did he come back and make him pancakes afterwards?
Well, the cook, Randy Lederman, made him pancakes, but
Want some pancakes?
he did say, you want to have some pancakes.
Did you play?
No, I didn't play.
Who won the game? Blouses?
Yeah, probably. I don't remember. Prince was real good at basketball.
I heard.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Is there a basketball court at Paisley?
In the sound stage,
Of course.
it's
there
in
is.
indoors.
Well, yeah.
It wasn't really a basketball court thing.
Yeah, there was a hoop, though. That's incredible.
He was good.
We used to have the Timberwolves out there and play with them. I mean, they're 8 feet tall, and he was running underneath them.
There's a picture somebody showed me, and I'm sure it's sunset, of him throwing a shot.
Shooting in the court out here?
Uh-huh. Somebody showed it to me, and I said, that's the old, because where your table is now was a little 10 storage room.
Yeah, before that. That's a lounge now, but it used to be.
Yeah, it was a little 10 storage room, and he's in front of that, shooting a hoop.
Yeah, Paul said he would see him out there 2 in the morning playing
Yeah,
basketball
that's what
by
he used
himself.
to do on breaks.
Yeah, it was a good release, and, good thing I played basketball. And we also played ping pong a lot, too.
Yeah, he was good at that.
Yeah, he was really good at that. I never beat him with anything.
No.
But at least I put up I was a good opponent.
I don't know. He was too competitive
He's very competitive.
for me.
yeah. And I was
We went
competitive,
bowling
too.
one night here
Oh,
when
geez.
Denny Cordell had a bowling alley on Santa Monica. And I beat him, and he was really depressed. I mean, seriously depressed. He wouldn't talk to me. He just sat there like defeated, and I went, okay, well, I better not do that anymore.
Won't be beating him anymore. I tried to beat him. I couldn't, so that was...
Do you think that the music world, one great thing I loved about Prince was that he didn't mind calling out the biggest stars in the world, the Britney Spears, NSYNC. He's like, I play real music. I write real songs.
Yeah, he was.
He didn't care who he said that to.
Competition is what he was driven.
Well, I think it offended him, though, that these artists who have 19 ghostwriters and collaborators and producers, they're at the top of the charts when he's one of the greatest creatives ever. And why do they deserve to be up there when he's doing it the real way?
I remember when that happened. I remember when it shifted to manufactured music. I mean, it was going that way. But in the beginning, it was run by artists,
Yeah.
Herb Alpert, it was different. It was a different business. And
Yeah,
then
it was
when it
different.
became a business, it was when the lawyers and the accountants took over. And so,
Yep. The accountants wanted to play.
Yeah. And then it became a business.
Somebody sent me one of my favorite performances of him on YouTube, which didn't have a lot of views on it. It's him and the Third Eye Band, and they're doing She's Always in My Hair. And it's like a 9-minute version. And in the breakdown in the middle, he's like, This is real music. These are real musicians.
This is real music. These are real musicians.
And it's just like, that was so powerful, him saying that. Because do you feel that music would be completely different if he was still in the world today?
Yeah, I think he would hold up his end.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's not enough crazy people in music anymore. That's the problem. We need crazy people to do outlandish stuff. And the people that are hold the pockets in the budgets, they don't want to do that. They want to play it safe.
Yeah.
Do what's been done. We want our version of that. It's, it's hard. It's really easy to not be original. And, I always try to reach out for original artists. It's harder and harder to find.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about social media when it comes to music? Do you mess around with social media?
I'm really always on social media.
Yeah.
I'm always on YouTube. I'm always on Instagram. I'm looking for new artists all the time. And there are some there. There's some really good 17-year-olds right now.
Your Instagram is Rivkin_David.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know what my name is. I use it to snoop on people.
Well, and that's what my name. It's like you try one, it's like that's taken. Well, you try another one, then the one you end up with is I don't remember.
Yeah, I think they gave me one.
Yeah. The last one I called was Gary Clark Jr. I said that guy, he's going to be a star. He's got soul. He's an old soul in a young body, and that's.
I'm sure Peggy does the same thing I do. Is we look for special artists and try to find them and discover.
I look for
them.
special people in life. I mean, you just interesting.
That's how I got into this.
Instincts.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that you're also an artist. That's the reason you get into this business is because it touches you, and you're an artist of some kind. I wish I had been more technical. That's the only thing I wish I had. But I'd get those schematics and those manuals, and it was like, I just couldn't do it. It's just, mine was more of a feel, so I tried.
I don't read the manuals.
Yeah. I don't read directions until I fuck up
Yeah.
a lot, And my daughter always says, did you read the directions? I said, no. I don't like to read directions. I just like to get in there and get in there and play with stuff.
Well, that's how you even learned engineering. Is just and you learn about the
even get guitar distortion by turning up the preamp on the board.
Right.
And that's against the rules, but it still works.
Well, and that's the thing too is Prince taught you how to break the rules, and it was acceptable.
Do you think some amateur or some engineers thought that he was amateur because he did things that were against the rules, or?
No.
I mean,
Like, this guy doesn't know anything about it.
I'm the one that started breaking the rules. When we did the song Kiss, Warner Brothers was pissed off because I was really involved in it, and I talked to the promotion guy. He said, no, we're not putting that out. Prince really fucked up. And I went, what?
Wow.
And my heart dropped to the floor. And he said, yeah, there's no bass, there's no echo. It sounds like it's a demo. And I went, oh. And then Prince had enough power to go, well, put that out. Otherwise, I'm not giving you another one. And they put it out, and sure enough, a year later, they're trying to sign people that sound just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the tasteful innovations are made by musicians, not record companies.
Well, I remember the management company came in when we were doing 1999, and he wanted to put out Little Red Corvette, and they said Kiss won't play that. He said then they won't play it. Put it out.
Well, he told me he wrote Little Red Corvette just so he could get on the radio.
It was Pocket Full of Trojans, In and Out Around Your Leg, and all that.
Right.
And they said they won't play that.
Oh, it was because of that Tipper Gore thing still.
Is that when Frank Zappa had went in front of the Senate committee? Was that?
I saw that the other day. I just caught a piece of it.
Because Frank was like, they were policing lyrics, and Frank didn't really know Prince, but he really helped stand up for artists and their lyrics, freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, got to break the rules to be new art.
Did Prince ever get political at all? Did he ever like endorse a president? He was.
Remember Ronnie talked to Russia? That was kind of a political. That was when Reagan was president.
I guess in his own way it was political.
Yeah, I think he had his opinions, but it wasn't.
Do you miss him?
Yeah.
Yes.
You think about him often, and just.
I think about him, and he was a good friend, and he did a lot of important stuff, and I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss his sense of humor.
Yeah.
Would you go to the children's hospitals with him and play? He would play music.
I didn't go.
Well, you weren't on tour then, obviously, with him,
No.
because he would do that a lot, and a lot of charitable things.
He did a lot, yeah. A lot of stuff behind the scenes that you would never know. His foundation, the PRN, still supports that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is excellent. I appreciate you guys coming in so much. Let's get those plane tickets. We're going to let Peggy go see Paisley Park. She's never
Can
been
we do it
there.
in spring?
Better wait till the snow's gone.
Yeah, I'm not a snow girl.
I've never been
I
there.
come from the desert.
Yeah.
You're a cowgirl.
Well, yeah, and then when I tried to learn, that's the way I tore my ligaments in my knee was skiing. And I said, you know what? I don't understand the stuff to walk on. And then you expect me to put boards on my feet and go down a hill or a mountain? I don't get it. I don't get snow. I mean, I saw snow when I was 30 for the first time.
You're lucky.
So, yeah.
Last question, one on this, because this show's about Sunset and the artists and the rooms. What's a memory you have here of Sunset Sound? Working with Prince, any other artists?
About Sunset?
Yeah. What's the maybe it's the first time, or that story you said about you playing guitar?
One time I was working in Studio 3, and James Brown was doing a photo shoot in Studio 2. And for some reason, he went to our bathroom and started to get ready.
It's a private bathroom in Studio 3.
Yeah. So Coke, my assistant engineer, Coke Johnson,
Wow.
he walked in, and there's James Brown. And he goes, David. I went and looked, and
Sure enough, he's right there. And he looks at us, and he goes, how do you feel? And we both were like locked in place, and we blew it. We should have said, I feel good.
I talk to Coke quite often. He's down in Texas.
Yeah.
He's got a great bunch of stories. I mean, he worked with Bob Dylan here, Prince, obviously, so many artists. Did Coke assist you ever, or did you work with together?
I worked with Coke. Thought he had a great name for the 80s, didn't he?
Yeah. He looks like he's doing great in Texas.
Yeah, I think he
was a
still
nice
does
guy.
engineering.
He's a
Got
nice
a bunch of sports cars,
guy. Must be doing fairly well.
TR6s.
Was Prince in the room then when you were tracking?
No,
It was a
no,
different
I don't
group?
know what we were working on, but
Prince would probably flipped out if anyone was in his bathroom.
yeah, I don't think he would have liked it, especially James Brown.
Well, he didn't like. That's why he liked Studio 3, is because it was enclosed and
Yeah.
nobody went back there.
Big
except James Brown.
lounge, private bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have to come
He
out.
was the king of the castle.
He didn't play as much basketball when he worked in 3 as when he worked in 2. Because, you'd walk out of 2 and there was the basketball court. So
What's a memory that stands out from your nearly decade of work here at Sunset Sound? One day that you came in that stands out of all the rest.
Well, aside from Prince, that was wonderful. There was an incident in here. I was working with Elton John, and
What room? 2?
this one,
Oh, 1.
and it was Stevie Wonder was coming in, and he had an assistant, obviously, and he did a harmonica part on How Come. I guess that's why they called this the blues, and he wanted to punch in, and they looked at me to punch in, and everybody, you could hear the whole room like, it was Stevie Wonder, right? So I locked in. He had a signal that he would do, and I just locked into him, and I made the punch. And that was when the machines, you didn't know if you made the punch, because
Yeah.
it would, you had that little bit of
Couldn't tell if there was a
yeah.
gap.
So we played it back, and it was like, you could see the whole room kind of just, was funny. And I can still hear my punch. I was so locked into that, I can still hear it when I listen to that record.
Did you work with Elton on 2 albums?
Yeah,
He mentioned you in his book.
I know.
You knew that?
Yeah,
Elton John. Did you ever work with Elton John here or see him
No.
around?
he was so talented. He is so talented.
Well, that's a roundtable. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
This will be available shortly. And if you have hit songs, you need a producer. Rivkin _ David. Thank you guys so much.